Iran has just made the most dangerous decision in its 46-year history. Not a provocation, not a threat, not a warning shot fired across a shipping lane in the dead of night. A formal, explicit, publicly broadcast declaration of war against the United States of America, the most powerful military force in the history of human civilization. And the Pentagon did not call a press conference. It did not summon the Iranian ambassador. It did not send a strongly worded letter to the United Nations Security Council. It responded the only way the United States military knows how to respond when pushed beyond its final limit, with overwhelming, devastating, and precisely engineered force. What happened in the 96 hours following Iran's declaration is a story that will be studied in military academies for decades. A story about what happens when the world's most advanced strike machine is given a single, clear objective and told that all constraints have been removed. This is that story. And by the time we are finished, you will understand exactly why senior IRGC commanders, men who have spent their entire careers projecting defiance toward Washington, are now, for the first time, silent. Before we get to the Pentagon's response, you need to understand what made Iran's declaration so alarming, not just to Washington, but to every government, every oil market, every naval commander operating anywhere in the Middle East. Because Iran did not declare war from a position of weakness. Iran declared war from a position of carefully constructed, meticulously prepared military strength. Strength it had been building in secret for nearly 2 decades, while the world was watching other things. Iran's ballistic missile inventory, as assessed by U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency analysts in the months before the declaration, was the largest of any non-nuclear power on Earth. Over 3,000 ballistic missiles of various ranges, stored in hardened underground facilities buried beneath the Zagros and Alborz mountain ranges. These were not the crude, inaccurate weapons Iran had fired in previous confrontations. These were precision-guided systems that had been updated, upgraded, and, according to multiple intelligence assessments, equipped with Iranian-developed terminal guidance packages that reduced their circular error probable to under 10 meters. The Shahab-3, with a range of 2,000 kilometers, can reach every U.S. military base in the region, from Al Udeid in Qatar to Al Dhafra in the UAE to Camp Arifjan in Kuwait. The Imad, its precision-guided successor, can hit a target the size of a tennis court from that same distance. The Khorramshahr, Iran's most advanced medium-range ballistic missile, carries a maneuvering re-entry vehicle, meaning it can change its flight path in the terminal phase to evade missile defense systems. The Patriot batteries ringing U.S. bases in the Gulf were designed to intercept predictable trajectories. The Khorramshahr does not fly a predictable trajectory. And then there was the Fatah, the weapon that kept U.S. Central Command awake at night. Iran unveiled the Fatah in June 2023, a hypersonic ballistic missile, Iran claimed, with a speed of Mach 13 to Mach 15 in its terminal phase. Independent analysts debated the exact specifications. Nobody debated the core fact. A missile traveling at Mach 13 gives a Patriot battery approximately 8 seconds to detect, track, calculate, and intercept. 8 seconds. That is not a margin. That is a prayer. Iran's conventional missile arsenal was only the most visible layer of its threat. The deeper, more complex threat came from what military planners call the axis of resistance, Iran's network of armed proxy forces, stretching from Lebanon to Iraq, to Yemen to Syria to Gaza and beyond. Combined manpower across these affiliated groups exceeded 200,000 fighters, not conscripts. Fighters who had been trained, equipped, and in many cases directly commanded by IRGC Quds force officers for years or decades. Hezbollah in Lebanon alone possessed an estimated 150,000 rockets and missiles, more than most European NATO member states have in their entire artillery inventories. The Houthis in Yemen had demonstrated the ability to strike targets in Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and the Red Sea shipping lanes, with Iranian-supplied ballistic missiles and drone swarms. Shia militia groups in Iraq had the range and the munitions to strike U.S. personnel at multiple bases simultaneously. Iran had, over 40 years of patient construction, built a military system designed specifically to make a direct confrontation with the United States as costly as possible. Not to win in a conventional sense, Iran's generals were not delusional, but to ensure that any American military response would come at a price Washington might judge too high to pay. That calculation, that America could be deterred from responding fully because the cost of full response was too high, had worked for 4 decades. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, had bet his regime's survival on it continuing to work. He was about to discover that it had stopped working the moment Iran used the word war, because the word war did something that no provocation, no proxy attack, no mine-laying operation, no tanker seizure had ever done before. It gave the United States legal, political, and moral clarity. It removed the ambiguity that had constrained American responses for a generation. It handed the Pentagon a mandate so clean and so complete that no general, no senator, and no ally needed to ask whether the response was justified. Iran declared war, and Washington accepted. What the United States executed in response to Iran's declaration was not improvised. It was not emotional. It was not a reactive strike package assembled in a crisis room over a sleepless weekend. It was Operation Iron Verdict, a pre-planned, pre-rehearsed, pre-positioned campaign that had been sitting in CENTCOM's operational archive, fully developed and ready to execute for over 2 years. All it had needed was the political authorization to begin. Iran's declaration of war provided that authorization in the clearest possible terms. The operation ran in 3 sequential phases, each one building on the destruction of the previous. 3 weapons platforms formed its core. And each one was chosen for a specific reason that becomes clear only when you understand the full architecture of the plan. The first phase of Operation Iron Verdict had one objective: destroy Iran's ballistic missile capability before a single missile could be launched at an American base. Not reduce it, not degrade it, destroy it. The weapon chosen for this mission was the only aircraft on Earth capable of doing it: the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. 21 aircraft in the United States Air Force inventory, each one representing more than $2 billion of engineering genius and representing the most sophisticated flying machine ever constructed by human hands. The B-2 Spirit is a flying wing, no tail, no vertical stabilizers, a wingspan of 52 meters, a silhouette designed from every angle to scatter radar energy away from the transmitter rather than reflecting it back. Its radar cross-section, the radar signature that determines whether a radar system can detect it, is smaller than a large bird. Iran's most advanced air defense radar, the Russian-supplied S-300 PMU-2, operates in the frequency band specifically optimized to detect conventional aircraft. It was not designed to find something with the radar signature of a sparrow flying at 50,000 feet. 8 B-2 Spirits launched from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri on the night of the operation's commencement. Each aircraft flew a 34-hour round-trip mission, nonstop, refueled 4 times in the air by KC-135 Stratotankers, invisible to every radar system Iran possessed from the moment they crossed into Iranian airspace until the moment their weapons released. Each B-2 carried 2 GBU-57AB massive ordnance penetrators. The MOP, as it is known throughout the U.S. military, is not a bomb in the conventional sense. It is a physics problem expressed in steel. It weighs 13,608 kilograms. It is 6.2 meters long. Its warhead contains 2,424 kilograms of explosive. But the explosive is almost secondary. The MOP was designed to use kinetic energy, the energy of sheer mass and velocity, to drive itself through rock and concrete before detonating. It can penetrate more than 60 meters of reinforced concrete. It can reach tunnel facilities buried beneath an entire hillside. It descends at terminal velocity, enters the target structure, passes through multiple floors, reaches the deepest level of the facility, and then the delayed fuse fires. The building does not collapse from outside. It detonates from within, using its own reinforced walls as a pressure vessel to multiply the blast force. Iran's ballistic missile storage facilities were buried between 30 and 55 meters beneath solid granite. Their engineers had calculated that no conventional weapon could reach them. That calculation was correct for every conventional weapon except one. In the first 6 hours of Operation Iron Verdict, B-2 Spirits carrying MOPs struck 23 of Iran's 27 known primary ballistic missile storage facilities. Secondary explosions, missile propellant, warhead material, fuel reserves, detonating in chain sequence inside collapsed tunnel networks continued for 11 hours. U.S. Space Command satellite infrared sensors detected the secondary explosions as discrete heat signatures visible from orbit. CENTCOM's post-strike assessment, released in summary form at 48 hours later, confirmed that Iran's ballistic missile stockpile had been reduced by an estimated 85% in a single night. The Fatah hypersonic missile program, Iran's most advanced and most feared weapons development effort, was assessed as having been set back by a minimum of 7 years. 7 years in a single night. Destroying Iran's missiles solved Phase 1, but it did not solve the 200,000-strong proxy network spread across 7 countries, ready to activate on command and turn every American base, every American ship, every American citizen in the region into a target. Suppressing a geographically dispersed, deeply embedded proxy network requires a weapon that is not fast, not high altitude, and not stealthy. It requires something that can loiter, something that can observe, something that can identify a target, confirm it, wait for the right moment, and then destroy it with absolute precision. Something that can do this for hours at a time, over a battlefield that is not a battlefield but a city, a village, a road. The weapon the Pentagon chose for Phase 2 was the AC-130J Ghost Rider, the most lethal close air support platform ever built, and a weapon so psychologically devastating to the forces it hunts that it has acquired a reputation among the irregular fighters of multiple continents that borders on mythological. The AC-130J Ghost Rider is a converted Hercules cargo aircraft. 4 turboprop engines, a wingspan of 40 meters, a fuselage that carries not cargo but an arsenal of precise, scalable weapon systems mounted to fire from the aircraft's left side in a continuous orbit. At its heart is a 105mm SEM-102 howitzer, a cannon capable of firing a 15-kilogram shell with pinpoint accuracy at targets on the ground below. Supporting it are a 30mm Bushmaster autocannon firing at 200 rounds per minute, capable of destroying a lightly armored vehicle with a 2-second burst. And integrated into the Ghost Rider's weapon suite are AGM-176 Griffin missiles and GBU-44 Viper strike munitions, precision-guided weapons for targets that require surgical accuracy in environments where collateral damage cannot be accepted. But the AC-130J's true power is not in any single weapon. It is in the integration of those weapons with the most sophisticated sensor and targeting suite ever fitted to a propeller-driven aircraft. The Ghost Rider carries AN/AAQ-38 FLIR, forward-looking infrared, that can identify a human being by body heat from an altitude of 25,000 feet in complete darkness. It carries synthetic aperture radar that can track a moving vehicle through cloud cover, sandstorm, or smoke. It carries a laser designator that can paint a target for other aircraft simultaneously while its own guns are engaging a separate target. 12 AC-130J Ghost Riders were deployed across the region in Phase 2, operating simultaneously over Iraq, Yemen, Syria, and Lebanon. Their targets were not buildings. Their targets were people, specifically the IRGC Quds Force commanders, weapons depot coordinators, and communications officers who were the operational links between Tehran and its proxy forces in the field. Operating with targeting packages built from signals intelligence, human intelligence, and real-time drone surveillance, the Ghost Riders spent 18 continuous hours hunting. Not striking randomly, hunting, identifying, confirming, then destroying with a precision that left the target building intact, and the target himself unable to pass orders to anyone. CENTCOM confirmed the elimination of 34 senior IRGC Quds force officers across 5 countries in the Phase 2 operation. 17 weapons caches used to supply proxy forces were destroyed. 11 communications relay facilities linking Tehran to its proxy network were taken offline. The axis of resistance had, in 18 hours, lost its command layer. Hezbollah issued no statement. The Houthis fired no missiles. The Iraqi militia groups did not activate. Without the Quds, force officers who transmitted orders, coordinated logistics, and managed weapon supplies, the proxy network did not function. It did not function because it could not function. The hands that operated it had been removed. Phase 1 had destroyed Iran's missiles. Phase 2 had decapitated its proxy network. Phase 3 had a different objective entirely. Phase 3 was not about destruction. Phase 3 was about permanence. The USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, CVN-69, a Nimitz-class nuclear-powered aircraft carrier displacing 104,000 tons at full load, entered the Persian Gulf through the Strait of Hormuz at 0600 local time on day 3 of the operation. She was not alone. The Eisenhower's carrier strike group comprised 2 Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers, 1 Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruiser, 2 attack submarines operating submerged, and an ammunition and supply ship. Combined defensive capability of the strike group included over 500 standard missile interceptors capable of engaging ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and aircraft simultaneously at ranges up to 400 kilometers. Combined defensive strike capability exceeded 2,000 individual precision-guided munitions, available for immediate launch. The Eisenhower's Air Wing, 90 aircraft, established a combat air patrol over the entire length of the Persian Gulf within 90 minutes of transit entry. FA-18E Super Hornets flew barrier combat air patrol along the Iranian coastline. EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft suppressed every Iranian air defense radar that attempted to illuminate American aircraft. E-2D Advanced Hawkeye airborne early warning aircraft orbited at altitude, providing total radar coverage of the airspace from the Strait of Hormuz to the northern tip of the Gulf. Iran had no air force capable of challenging this. Its most advanced fighter aircraft, the F-14 Tomcats it had purchased from the United States before the 1979 revolution, were old. Its Russian-supplied MiG-29s and Su-24s were outnumbered, outranged, and outclassed in every technical dimension by the aircraft aboard the Eisenhower. The Iranian Air Force did not scramble a single aircraft. The Persian Gulf, a body of water Iran had treated as its own strategic lake for decades, now belonged to the United States Navy. And the Eisenhower's presence made that fact impossible to ignore, impossible to spin, and impossible to reverse without a military capability Iran simply did not possess. But the weapons and the numbers only tell half of the story, because running alongside the military operation was a parallel campaign, one that struck at something more fundamental than missiles or proxy commanders or naval dominance. It struck at the decision-making itself. The declaration of war had come from one man above all others. Not Khamenei. The supreme leader had approved it, but Khamenei does not draft operational documents or sign military orders. The declaration had been drafted, argued for, and ultimately pushed through Iran's Supreme National Security Council by Brigadier General Esmail Qaani, commander of the IRGC Quds Force and the most powerful operational military figure in the Islamic Republic. Qaani had been Qasem Soleimani's deputy for 13 years before the United States killed Soleimani in a drone strike at Baghdad airport in January 2020. He had watched his mentor and predecessor die in an American precision strike and had spent the following 6 years building toward a moment of reckoning. The declaration of war was, by multiple intelligence accounts, Qaani's initiative, his conviction, his strategic bet. On the morning of Day 2 of Operation Iron Verdict, a signals intelligence intercept confirmed that Qaani's encrypted communications terminal had been active for 4 consecutive hours inside a known Quds Force facility in the Murtamad district of Tehran. The terminal's location was cross-referenced against 3 independent intelligence sources. The confirmation window lasted 11 minutes. A Tomahawk Block V cruise missile launched from the USS Florida, an Ohio-class submarine operating submerged in the Gulf of Oman, flew a Hone 400-kilometer route at low altitude, terrain-hugging, invisible to radar, and struck the Murtamad facility at 9:43 a.m. local time. The Tomahawk Block 5 carries a 450-kilogram warhead and a penetrating fuse that delays detonation until the weapon has entered the target structure. Qaani was confirmed dead by 3 independent intelligence channels within 2 hours of the strike. Sils, the individual who made the decision to declare war on the United States of America, has been held accountable for that decision. We did not seek this confrontation. Iran chose it, and Iran is now learning at considerable cost what choosing a confrontation with the United States military means in practice. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper, in his classified briefing to the Senate Armed Services Committee, portions of which were subsequently released, stated that Qaani's death had created an immediate and complete paralysis in IRGC Quds Force operations across all 7 countries where proxy forces were active. Without Qaani, there was no one in the IRGC chain of command with the authority, the relationships, and the operational knowledge to manage the proxy network. His deputies were either dead from Phase 2 Ghost Rider strikes, in hiding, or unreachable. Inside the Kremlin, Russia issued a statement calling for restraint. Beijing issued a statement calling for de-escalation. Neither statement contained a single word of condemnation of the United States operation. When Russia and China declined to condemn an American military action, the message to Tehran is clear: you are alone. Iran had declared war expecting that its 40 years of preparation, its missile stockpiles, its proxy network, and its geopolitical relationships would protect it from the full weight of American power. In 96 hours, every single one of those protections had been stripped away. Khamenei appeared on state television that evening. He spoke for 4 minutes. He made no threats. He announced no countermeasures. He said that Iran would respond at a time and place of its choosing, the same language Iranian officials have used after every previous American action, language that has become, through repetition, meaningless. State television cut to a recitation of Quranic verses. The broadcast lasted 17 minutes. When Iran's response to the destruction of its military infrastructure is 17 minutes of Quranic verse, the strategic picture has changed beyond recognition. In terms of Iran's ballistic missile capability, 23 of 27 primary storage facilities destroyed. Estimated 85% of stockpile eliminated in Phase 1. The Fatah hypersonic program set back a minimum of 7 years. Mobile launcher units, Iran's redundancy against fixed site strikes, reduced by an estimated 70% through follow-on B-1B Lancer strikes in the 48 hours following the initial B-2 attack. In terms of the proxy network, 34 senior IRGC Quds. Force officers eliminated across 5 countries. 17 weapons caches destroyed. 11 communications relay facilities destroyed. Brigadier General Esmail Qaani, Quds, Force commander and architect of the war declaration, killed on Day 2. Proxy forces in Lebanon, Yemen, Iraq, Syria, and Gaza operationally paralyzed for a minimum assessed period of 6 to 18 months, while the network reconstitutes command structures. In terms of naval dominance, the USS Eisenhower Strike Group established full naval control of the Persian Gulf. Iranian surface naval vessels, the IRGC's fleet of fast attack craft, patrol boats, and the 3 Mauj-class frigates that constituted Iran's most capable warships, did not leave port during or after the operation. All 3 frigates have been assessed by reconnaissance satellite as having moved to hardened shelter berths in Bandar Abbas. In terms of economic impact, Brent crude oil, which had spiked to $100 per barrel on the day of Iran's war declaration, as markets priced in the possibility of a full Hormuz closure, fell $38 in a single trading session following the first CENTCOM battle damage assessment release. The fall represented the single largest one-day oil price collapse in history. Global shipping insurance rates in the Persian Gulf, which had reached 400% of pre-crisis levels, fell 60% within 48 hours of the Eisenhower entering the Gulf. In terms of diplomatic realignment, Saudi Arabia formally offered its airspace and basing rights to U.S. operations for the duration of the campaign, the first time Riyadh has made such an offer publicly and unconditionally. The UAE upgraded its security cooperation agreement with Washington to full mutual defense status. Bahrain, host of the U.S. Fifth Fleet headquarters, authorized unlimited operational tempo for American forces operating from its territory. 26 nations issued statements of support for the American operation. Admiral Cooper's assessment, delivered to the Senate Armed Services Committee, was the most direct military evaluation issued by a senior American commander in a generation. Iran's capacity to threaten the United States, its allies, or the free flow of commerce through the Persian Gulf has been reduced, in 96 hours, to a level not seen since before the Islamic Revolution of 1979. 46 years of Iranian military strategy, built at enormous cost, operated with enormous patience, and wielded with considerable effectiveness, reduced to its pre-1979 starting point in 4 days. Now, and this matters, the picture is not as clean as the numbers suggest. Giving you only the victories without the remaining dangers would be telling you half a story, and this channel does not do half stories. Iran still has nuclear ambitions. This is the complication that every other calculation eventually runs into. Iran's nuclear program was not targeted in Operation Iron Verdict, deliberately. The political and strategic consequences of striking nuclear facilities, including the potential for contamination, the international legal questions, and the near certainty of escalation beyond any point of control, placed those sites outside the operation's scope. Iran's uranium enrichment program, which Western intelligence agencies assess as being weeks to months from weapons-grade capability, continues. A militarily weakened Iran with an accelerating nuclear program is not a simple problem. It is a more dangerous one. Iran's drone manufacturing capability was struck in Phase 1 and Phase 2, but not eliminated. Dispersal has been Iran's strategy since Israel began striking Iranian facilities in Syria years ago. Production is spread across dozens of smaller facilities, some of them disguised as civilian manufacturing plants, some of them in locations that remain unconfirmed by Western intelligence. Iran produces an estimated 2,000 to 3,000 Shahed series drones per month. A significant fraction of that capacity survived Operation Iron Verdict. Cheap, mass-produced attack drones are the one asymmetric tool that is genuinely difficult to defend against at scale. The proxy network has lost its command layer, but it has not lost its weapons. Hezbollah's 150,000 rockets and missiles are still in Lebanon. They did not need Qa'ani's active guidance to exist. They need a commander to authorize their use. Qa'ani's successor will eventually be appointed. The weapons will still be there when that happens. Reconstitution of command structures in non-state armed groups has historically taken 6 to 18 months. That is a window, not a permanent solution. And domestically, there is a dynamic inside Iran that the military operation cannot resolve. The Islamic Republic is a government. It has a population of 87 million people who did not vote to go to war with the United States. Those 87 million people are now watching their country's military infrastructure be destroyed on social media in real time, watching their currency collapse, watching the regime that has governed their lives for nearly 5 decades be stripped of the strategic capability it claimed would protect them. What happens inside Iran in the weeks and months ahead, whether the population rallies around a wounded regime or begins to question whether the regime itself is the problem, is a question that no American airstrike can answer. The United States has won this military confrontation decisively. Whether it has won the strategic confrontation, whether Iran emerges from this weaker in ways that hold, or reconstitutes and returns to the same pattern of behavior, that question will be answered not on a battlefield, but in the politics of a country the United States has never fully understood. Those are the complications. They are real. They deserve to be named. And they are why this story, despite everything that has happened in the past 96 hours, is far from over. Iran declared war. The Pentagon responded with the B-2 Spirit, the AC-130J Ghostwriter, the USS Eisenhower, and a Tomahawk cruise missile that reached the man who started it all. 85% of Iran's ballistic missile stockpile is gone. 34 Quds Force commanders are gone. The architect of the war declaration is gone. The Persian Gulf belongs to the U.S. Navy. This is what happens when the world's most powerful military machine is given clarity of purpose and told that all constraints have been removed. Iran spent 46 years building the capability to make this kind of confrontation too costly for America to pursue. In 96 hours, that calculation was proven wrong in every dimension simultaneously. Has Operation Iron Verdict permanently ended Iran's ability to threaten the United States and its allies in the region, forcing Tehran toward a fundamental change of strategy, whether it wants one or not? Or does Iran still have enough remaining capability, its nuclear programmed, its surviving drone production, its proxy weapon stockpiles, to reconstitute the threat and eventually reemerge as the same danger it was before the declaration?